in thinking in this past week, wow, I'd really like to be in a different reality. So we have an incredible program tonight, but we would not be where we are tonight. We wouldn't literally be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation if it weren't for our hosts, Ericson. So I'd like to welcome Dwight Witherspoon from Ericson. Thank you so much, Dwight.
Thank you, and welcome again, everybody. I'm Dwight. I run communications for Ericson in North America. We really welcome all of you to our new campus here in Santa Clara, to this Experience Center. I hope you're enjoying it and you continue to enjoy it through the night. You know Recode and Ina and the influential, powerful work these guys do. This amazing group of speakers, you're here for them tonight. I won't take up too much of your time. You may know a little bit less about Ericson. That's okay. That's why I'm here. We build solutions. Me and 100,000 of my closest friends in 180 countries around the world build solutions for media and IT and cloud and mobility, which is one of our core strengths. Ericson built the first mobile network in 1981. More than 50% of all the traffic that goes through these things right here goes through our networks, and we will soon deliver the first ever 5G network. This space is built for you and us to collaborate. So please find me, find my Ericson colleagues afterwards. Let's find a way to throw your stuff against the wall, to pilot it, to test it, whether you're an entrepreneur or a Fortune 500, Fortune 50. This is a place where we can meet, and that's why we were excited to have our friends from Vox and Recode here host you tonight.
And you guys have some demos people can check out.
There's some demos. I hope you got a chance to see all the demos out here tonight. They were amazing. I think I did all of them, and I'm at Ericson, and I'm still seeing new stuff every time I come to the Experience Center. And Oculus and Google, of course, fantastic. I still have a little vertigo from Oculus, so fantastic.
Thank you, Dwight.
So great. Take us into the evening,
Excellent. So we're going to try and keep Ryan talking as little as possible so you can hear from all the great guests that we have. I did want to frame things a little bit. So the first segment looks at tech for good, and Jordan Hewson, our first speaker, is the CEO of Speakable, which is a company that produces something called Action Button, which lets you basically take action after you've read some really compelling story. A lot of times we hear these stories, we read those things, we're moved, we think we should do something, and that's the end of it. And that's where their company comes in. And I'd like to invite my colleague from The Verge, Lauren Good, to do that interview with Jordan Hewson. So Lauren and Jordan.
Thank you everybody for being here tonight, and thank you especially to Jordan for having me chat with us. It's great to have you here. So Speakable, for people that aren't that familiar with Speakable and how it works, tell us a little bit about how it works and why you decided to do this.
Well, imagine how many times you've read a news article, been so inspired and compelled by the content that you wanted to do something but you didn't know how. That's why we started Speakable, to connect news readers to opportunities to take action on articles that inspire them and make it faster and easier for them to do that, than they've been able to do previously.
And how exactly does it work? So someone's reading an article, there's a button at the bottom of it? Is that how?
Absolutely. As you're reading the article, when you finish, you're presented with various options to take action, whether that's donating to an NGO that you'd like to support, signing a petition, emailing a decision maker, a policy maker, tweeting at a decision maker, and we enable people to take action right on the article page, so we never drive traffic away from the publisher, which is something that they like.
So you're taking a friction away, essentially. A lot of times I'll read an article, say I don't really know what to do from here. You hop out of that page, you open another tab in the browser, you start searching, right? And then you're essentially navigating away from the content.
Exactly.
You don't really know what to do. One of the interesting things about the Action Button is that it's algorithmically determined, right, where this goes. There aren't human editors that are placing this. How does that work exactly?
We do have a human touch element, but we are building an ecosystem of civic and charitable actions that we curate from a network of NGO partners, and we plug that into our technology, and the algorithm will essentially match those actions contextually to the right content, so we can make it actionable.
So it's actually it's seeing words, it's seeing the content that's on the page and saying this is a match.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Finding the issues and the relevant sentiment associated with them.
And you are vetting the NGOs, the organizations?
We're hand selecting them we just completed a year in beta with Huffington Post where we had 30 of the best organizations. I'm really, really proud that they're our partners, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Planned Parenthood, CARE, some of the best organizations, internationally have been partnered with us, and it's so important to organizations to be able to access new supporters so fast and effectively because, organizations spend so much money trying to find people who care about their issues, and, now news readers, when they care about an issue they're reading about, are directed, to those organizations seamlessly.
We've also partnered with Guardian US and
Yeah,
Vice.
our publishing partners were really excited. We have Huffington Post, Vice, Guardian on board, and I think that's a really exciting group of media to be starting with. So we're very, very pleased that they're excited to, move in this direction where people expect more things from digital content, and they want to do more than just read headlines. They want to change headlines and participate in stories that inspire them.
So how do you measure the success of that then? I mean, what is the specific metric or sort of action you're looking for? Is it a donation? Is it something else? What kind of information are you getting back right now? How active people are?
It would really depend on the charity and how best you can impact their work. So if it's an advocacy organization, obviously they're looking for petition signatures, and if it's probably, a more humanitarian focused organization, they really need your donation support.
Let's talk a little bit about how you got into this. When you spoke earlier, you mentioned that you had studied creative writing. But you happen to have very active parents, social activists. Some of you may know who Bono is. Some of you. And so you had this influence growing up, right? And so what happened for you that made you say, this is what I want to do?
Well, I think, I definitely came from a family that was very, socially active and encouraged us to sort of look around, at the world and participate in it. And, I experienced a lot of frustration when I would, travel with my family and go to a township in Kenya or a HIV clinic in South Africa. And I think, that's also part of the influence behind this is that, trying to combat that sense of frustration and impotence that we feel when we want to do something when we care about it, but we just don't know how. But really the inception of the company came in 2012 when I was reading an article about Malala being shot by the Taliban, and I failed to do anything about it. The article included a link to a petition which I didn't sign, and I was working as a campaigner at the time, and I sort of took a hard look at myself 5 minutes later when I realized I had failed to do anything, and thought about the barriers that exist to our participation, and perhaps if we made it easier and faster for people to do something, it would be more likely that they would. So that was definitely the inception of the product, and it's been a long road since then. That was 2012, and I'm glad we stuck with it because as a first-time founder, it was very frustrating trying to build this product and watching events happen in the news, like whether it was the Ebola outbreak or whether it was the image of the Syrian boy washed up on the shores. Those were moments where I would see product on an article. And so those were frustrating moments, but also energizing moments, I think, to continue fighting, to get media to evolve in this way so that people could participate in content meaningfully.
Do you feel that there are generational differences between perhaps maybe the way people have been, involved in social activism, donated, contributed in some way in years past compared with maybe, your generation?
I think what we're seeing with millennials is very exciting. 70% of us consider ourselves social activists. 87% donated to charity last year. But I really think it comes down to a question of technology and how much easier it is now to participate civically than it was 20 years ago. So I think that, there's a huge opportunity for our generation to get involved in things because it's just easier to do. And that's definitely a gap that our company is filling. But I also think, with mobile, it's really exciting how many people are gonna have smartphones in 2020. And that just makes, the power of civic activism, so much more available to anyone who has a smartphone. It's really exciting.
Do you feel that at all could potentially create a dynamic of what some people call armchair activism, in the sense that people maybe feel like they're doing something by browsing on their mobile phone, slacktivism, yeah, and aren't necessarily getting out there?
No, I think there's this misconception that to have a social impact, you really need to put in a lot of effort, and it needs to be really difficult, and it should feel difficult because you're giving back. And in reality, that's just not true. The organizations that we're working with, they really only need your donation or petition signature to support something in most cases. I would rather leave things in the hands of experts, but ensure that they have the funds to be able to carry out the incredible work that they're doing. So I don't really agree with that. I think, technology is in a place where having a social impact should, be as easy as ordering an Uber or, purchasing a dress online. And that's really, a goal for our company moving forward. Just be a part of people's daily behavior because it's so easy. And that's also something we've noticed with the product. It's not something we've had to market or anything like that. People are just naturally using it because it fills, sort of very natural desire that people have when they're reading something. They want to engage more with it. They want to be asked their opinions and asked to do something. And so it's integrated so well with that demand.
So you see sort of media inherently becoming something that should be actionable in some way?
I don't think every news story is actionable, but many are, And I think it's very exciting for someone to be able to participate in a story. And I think that's why we're seeing news, predominantly being shared on Twitter and Facebook, because people want to activate community around, what they read, and they want to have the opportunity to, preface news with their own opinion. And I think that's really a trend that's happening. There's just new expectations of what you can do with content because it's online. And so our company is making sure that what that participation is as meaningful as it can be.
Right. It's of course very timely because we're, sort of in the wake of this, I don't even know how to describe it, election. Sort of at a loss for words, but there was a lot of information being shared, and also a lot of misinformation being shared, and it's interesting to see how people take action based on the information they may have been provided with. Do you see a future where perhaps something like the action button can be applied in other areas outside of social activism?
Well, I think just, to address the previous part of what you were saying, I think that's why really we went after news, because we wanted to promote credible activism, activism that was educated, it was informed, so people reading strong journalistic content had the right information and the responsibility to take an informed action. But I think, we would love to, expand the company into social networks and work with Snapchat or Facebook and Twitter. And so, you have to think about where are people most primed to take action. Is it where they're learning about the issues, or is it where they're talking about the issues? And so that's a big question for our company.
Are you talking with social media companies like Snapchat and Facebook? You might be. Okay. Because they're right up the road here. While you're, I suppose Facebook is. So while you're in town,
busy day tomorrow.
Okay. All right. There you go. So you happen to be at the Javits Center on Tuesday night in New York City during the election.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, it was just truly heartbreaking first of all, as a woman, to sort of be watching, the election results play out in a perfectly under a perfectly architected glass ceiling. That really made me think about how that was such a visual metaphor of how much further we have to go to smash that thing down. And so it was inspiring and also enraging and frustrating. And it was also inspiring to see like young boys. I saw a young boy like crying when the election results were coming in, and I actually felt inspired by it because he was advocating for like a female president, and I knew that moment was going to mark how he grows up and thinks about like civic activism. So it was a very interesting moment to be, and I'm glad I witnessed it, but it was also very, very difficult to be there.
Have you been involved in the Clinton campaign?
I am technically Irish, so technically I cannot have been involved, but I was sort of involved.
Okay.
I definitely, have been supporting and going to events, and it was an amazing thing to be a part of, to be advocating for a first female president and thinking about how that can influence women all across the globe, particularly in developing countries where women are just really disenfranchised across so many different issues. And it's a big moment for the world, if the US was being led by a female president, and I was really, really excited and proud to be, advocating for that. So.
And you stayed until after Podesta's speech.
Yeah.
And so what were you feeling at that moment?
That was truly heartbreak. I tried, friends of mine who were fully, employed by the campaign, which I was not. I tried, to be with them and listen to them. They kind of got straight back to work. But it was, people were holding each other, and we also started to play music, which was really nice. They were playing Ain't No Mountain High and other inspirational music. So there was a feeling of solidarity amidst the despair of what was happening.
Well, hopefully that's something we will continue to feel solidarity, regardless of who you voted for in the coming days. I think we were planning on allowing for one audience question. If anyone has an audience question that they would like to ask, now's your time. I see a hand raised back there. I think someone can bring you a microphone. If you just keep your hand raised for a second. Thank you.
One question: when we build these platforms, we build them with a lot of good intentions, Twitter, Facebook, and things like that. And then at one point, when the platforms become too big, we have to become value neutral. So suddenly, Twitter becomes as much as a medium for forces of evil as it becomes for the forces of good, for lack of a better comparison. How do you plan to avoid it?
I think right now the publishing partners that we're working with, we haven't had to make any difficult choices as a company that would compromise on any of our own beliefs as individuals, but we will have to move forward to becoming more issue agnostic. As we expand and scale across more platforms and publishers, but I do believe that you can have limitations to what you will promote and not, and certain regulations and boundaries around hate speech and other things like that. And I do think companies like Facebook and Twitter try to keep that, to a minimum on their platform. And there's definitely, something to be learned from how they're approaching that difficulty, because it is a real concern online.
It absolutely is. It's a good question, and for publishers too. It's so important, and unless it's something that is expressly opinionated, to remain as unbiased as possible. And so by inserting something that's actionable and actually asking people for money, could be perceived as a conflict of interest in some cases.
I think that's actually why they're excited to work with us, because we are essentially a third party. So it's not necessarily that Vice or the Huffington Post are suggesting you should donate to one organization over the other. It's more that they have enabled you to understand and see what solutions exist to this particular issue that they're covering. And definitely our approach is that we're about empowering readers to decide for themselves what they want to do. So we generally give people like 3 or 4 options of various organizations they can support. And I think that's really, really important for people to be able to make their own independent choices on what they'd like to do and who they'd like to support. So
we might have time for one more quick question. It's hard to see, actually. Anyone? shy? I saw some of you having drinks out there, so I know you can't be that shy. Okay. All right. Well, Jordan, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. And now I'd love to welcome Ina Fried back on stage.
Thanks, Lauren, and thanks, Jordan. That was awesome. You know, one of the other areas where I think we're seeing technology move is really wide open field of what will be done using this technology is drones. And so I'm particularly excited to bring out Keller Renato, who's the CEO of Zipline, which is using drones in a very interesting way to deliver blood, in this case, although they have bigger plans, in developing countries. So using drones as a delivery mechanism, but not to bring you that new gadget you had to have from Amazon, but something actually life-saving and life-changing. So, ladies and gentlemen, Keller Renato.